Welcome back, everybody, to the Fantasy Hockey Hacks podcast, a proud member of the Heavy Hockey Network. I'm Devin Davidson, your host. With me, as always, Bruce Gunther.
Hello.
It's a small crowd for this episode, Bruce.
Very empty here in the studio.
Yeah, I don't have
empty.
No background set either, so the background in StreamYard just looks sad.
It's barren.
Generally, it's so packed it doesn't matter. But anyway, here we are. Episode 115. Tonight we're going to do kind of a fun episode. This is more of an impromptu episode, and really the way it came up was our buddy Blake put out his projection for Andrei Kuzmenko, and it had me thinking, okay, what would I project Kuzmenko for? So I went and looked at the numbers, and sweet Jesus, we're in for some fun with that guy. And it just had me thinking, who else is a potential fantasy hockey bust in 2023-2024? So that's what we're going to cover tonight, 5 potential busts for next season. Should be a fun one. Should be a relatively short episode by our standards, too.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Not an hour and a half this time. Let's see if we can hammer it out in about half an hour.
There you go.
This episode is brought to you by Flaviar. Refine your palate with spirits from around the world. Sample and train your palate with curated tasting sets. Buy bottles at a discount and curate your home bar. Socialize and learn together with other members. Visit flaviar.com/FHH today to save 10% when you sign up for a subscription. Available to listeners in the United States, United Kingdom, and European Union. Okay, and since John's not here, we're still going to do John's list, as we typically do.
Nice.
So for those of you that are new, John's list is basically just John's shit list of players past and present, as well as some interesting and current topics from around the hockey world. If you have any suggestions for players or topics, please feel free to send them in to us. We're always open to feedback. This week, this is more for John, the poor guy.
Definitely for John.
He's having a rough go at work, and one of his employees, I'm going to call him Parts Dave, decided to leave for lunch and then sent John an email saying he's not coming back. So, Dave, you're on the list this week, my friend. That is not the way you tell somebody you're leaving your work.
Well, not that he's not coming back for a shift. He's not coming back at all.
Ever. Yeah,
Ever.
If that wasn't clear, he walked out the door, went to a job interview at lunchtime, and then sent John an email to say he was never coming back.
Oy, oy, oy.
I guess, maybe I should be an honorary member of the list this week, too, because I messed up our scheduling last week. I had mentioned that Matt Larkin was coming on this week for our Pacific Division preview. I got my wires crossed. Doesn't matter. Long story short, we're going to have parts 1 and 2 of the Pacific Division fantasy preview next week. So we'll have 2 episodes out for you next week for that. This week, we're kind of doing an impromptu episode, and then we'll get back to our regularly scheduled programming, Bruce.
Sounds good.
Alrighty. And then for anyone that missed it, Dauber's 2023-2024 Fantasy Hockey Guide is now available. Go get yours now. I dug into it a little bit last night, Bruce, but it did come out, I think it was around 10 o'clock here. So I didn't read through it too much, but...
I haven't downloaded it yet. I'm on holidays this week, so I'm planning on doing very little. So
well, this is great holiday reading material, Bruce.
I know I should be, but I've been holding down the couch quite efficiently this week. So
nice, good for you. All right, well, let's get into it. 5 potential busts in 2023-2024. This is going to be an in-depth look at 5 players that overachieved and or were unusually lucky in 2022-2023. We're expecting those players to have inflated ADPs heading into drafts this fall, but also expected to take a step back in the new season. Fantasy managers are going to overspend for these players and be disappointed with the results at season's end. We put together kind of a scale here, Bruce. So level of concern is a scale from 1 to 5, 1 being least concerned and 5 being most concerned. And we're going to kick things off with the guy that we already talked about, Andrei Kuzmenko from the Vancouver Canucks. My level of concern for this guy is 5 big red flags. Like I said, this episode is basically was inspired by Blake's projection on Kuzmenko, because when I looked at his numbers, there was some real big red flags there. So the first thing is his individual shooting percentage is 26.8% last season.
Oh boy, that's not sustainable at all.
No, we know that's not sustainable. His secondary assist rate per 60 was 1. Anything above 0.5 is like generally not sustainable, or you expect some sort of regression, right? And
Yeah.
so that's interesting. And then the team even strike shooting percentage with him on the ice was 13%. Again, quite high. We expect some regression there. And we don't have any historical numbers to really work with for Kuzmenko specifically, but almost 37% on the power play.
Holy crap.
So lots and lots of things to be concerned about with Kuzmenko for next season. I mean, look, I was talking to Ryan, right? We had Ryan Black from Puck Dynasty on here a couple weeks ago, and he said, the one thing about Kuzmenko is that he was an elite shooter in the KHL, so some of these numbers may not be totally out to lunch. Obviously not anywhere near what we would expect. So I'm just really curious to see how he does in his second season, but I'm expecting a big step back. So looking at that individual shooting percentage, like I said, it's his first year in the NHL. We don't have a whole lot to work with, but his shooting percentage ranks third among all NHL players with a minimum of 40 games played over the last 25 seasons.
Holy cow.
Third. Only Matt Johnson and Stu Grimson, who had
the Grim Reaper.
Yes, who had a 33% shooting percentage in 57 games and a 30% shooting percentage in 73 games. But here's the thing. When I looked at the numbers closely, those players, Matt Johnson only had 21 shots on goal and Stu Grimson had 10.
The whole season.
In 73 games played. So unless
Wow.
NHL.com is feeding me some wonky numbers, I mean, you can understand why those numbers are so high. So really, if you look at it,
Wow.
this is just like crazy stuff for Kuzmenko in terms of individual shooting percentages. Then I went a little further and I said, if you filter those numbers for players that played a minimum of 80 games in a season, there's just 25 players in the past 25 years to shoot above 20% through a full season.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, not something I expect Kuzmenko to duplicate for 2023, 2024. So you're going to see some regression that way. Actually, another recent example here. So William Karlsson. William Karlsson had that great season in Vegas in 2017, 2018. He shot 23.4% on 184 shots on goal. Both career highs for him. The following season, he scored just 24 goals on 14.2%.
Yeah, that was their inaugural season, right?
Yeah. And he hasn't
Where
he hasn't broken 20 goals since.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't dropped off a cliff, but he hasn't been anywhere near what his original one was. His original season.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I'm not suggesting necessarily that Kuzmenko is going to fall off a cliff next season, but wouldn't totally surprise me if he went from what he did to 10 or 15 goals less, I guess. All right, and then I want us to look at the secondary assist rates per 60. So when you look at that number, obviously you benefited from some luck at one secondary assist per 60 minutes played. That was actually first among all skaters. When I looked at players that played a minimum of 40 games last year. For comparison, Tim Stützle and Vladimir Tarasenko both had secondary assist rates of 0.57 per 60 last year. And so just looking at that number specifically as a comparable, if that was the rate for Kuzmenko last year, he would have had 7 fewer secondary assists right there.
Oh, wow.
So it's going to be a big drop-off for this guy, I think. And so then looking at his team's even strength shooting percentage at 13%, that's going to regress a little bit. We'll see some more points come off his totals. And then, like I said, that power play percentage at 36.8% was just crazy. That was actually first among all players that took a minimum of 30 shots on the power play last season. And for reference, Leon Draisaitl was at 30.4% on the power play. And that was the NHL's best power play ever, and he shot 30.4%. Kuzmenko shot at 37. So,
wow. So basically, they're just feeding the puck to Kuzmenko and he's scoring. That's basically what they were doing.
I think, well, that's probably part of it, but I'm sure he's just converting on an exceptionally high percentage. Like, that's just, I don't expect that to happen again, but I could be wrong. So, like I said to Blake, this is on Twitter, I just said I'm expecting Kuzmenko to be more of a 60-point, 30-goal guy next season. That's where my expectations would be. keeping in mind and with the understanding that there's an obvious upside to his game, right? If he does continue to shoot at a very high rate, and or continue to be lucky, but I don't.
For the chances of him to repeat that is pretty slim.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, there's some numbers here we haven't seen from anyone in a long time, right? So
No kidding. Especially for someone playing in the league for their first year.
yeah, it's interesting. Like he probably could have been, if he was eligible, he would have been a Calder Trophy winner, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's kind of,
He's what, 27?
He's 27.
Yeah, he's a little outside the.
Oh man, that would have had John fired right up if we were talking about Calder Trophy winners being 27 years old coming from the KHL.
Oh yeah, that would not be good. That would be not good at all.
And I agree with him. I don't like that either. We've talked about that in the past, but
yeah.
All right, number 2 on this list, and it's probably not a surprise to you guys, or to you, Bruce, I would say, but Jamie Benn, center left wing, eligible for the Dallas Stars. For me, again, 5 big red flags for this player. I do not expect him to be where he was at this past season. 78 points and 33 goals after 4 consecutive seasons of playing at a 46 to 56 point pace over 82 games. I mean, it's interesting that, you know, they're a good team, right? Dallas is a fantastic team in the West. They're going to be great again. But can you really expect a now 34-year-old Ben to post another 78-point season?
Maybe he had a blood transfusion with Joe Pavelski. They're just taking blood from Pavelski and sticking it into Seguin and Ben and hoping that it'll just.
You know what? That could be true. Or maybe Joe just showed him where the fountain of youth is.
Or showed him where to stand so the puck could bounce off his butt.
I don't know. Either way, I'm pretty bearish on Ben for next season.
He's going to go ridiculously high, and they're going to be very disappointed with him.
Yeah, and that's really the thing, is when I'm looking at these 5 players, it's not to say that all of them are going to fall off a cliff necessarily, but there's numbers to show that they potentially can, and it's really about where fantasy managers are going to be selecting these players in drafts, right? I mean, people are going to look at Ben and go, "Oh, Ben's back." Well, no, I think that was an outlier season. I think we're gonna see something similar to what he's done the past 4 seasons instead.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I would agree.
So I guess digging into the numbers a little bit, and all of this is available on our website, fantasyhockeyhacks.com. So I've actually given some detailed analysis for anyone that wants to kind of read through this a little bit more. But he did post 5-year highs in the power play last year, so 22.8% shooting. 57 shots in the power play was a career high. Power play shots and goal per 60 at 14.2, and power play time on ice per game at 256 were 5-year highs. So I don't necessarily expect to see that duplicated. He's averaged actually 17.6% shooting on the power play over his career. So if we can expect something similar to that. But the other thing, too, is shots and goal per 60 at 14.2. He's unlikely to repeat that. So if he was to fire pucks at a rate of 9.8 or even 10.4 shots on goal per 60, which we've seen from him more recently, he could be closer to 7 power play goals instead of the whatever it was, 13, I think. So, like, there's going to be some drop-off there just on the power play, I think.
Power play time could be another thing, too, depending on how that lineup shakes out.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm curious to see, and we talked about it a couple episodes ago, but you've got Matthew Shane there, you've got Wyatt Johnston, you've got Tyler Seguin. Like, they're top 6. There's lots of guys there, and now it's even kind of filled it up a bit more in the top 9. So
definitely.
It's if he takes a step back this year, does he lose some power play time too? We'll have to see.
Yeah, exactly.
Ben's individual shooting percentage was also a career high at 17.4%. So from 2019 to 2022, he averaged 10.2%. And then last season, 17.4. So quite a jump for him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, that in itself, you're going to see some regression next season. You can guarantee it in terms of shooting percentage. The one thing that he's been really consistent with, though, is his shot rates at 8. He's been between 8 and 8.9 shots on goal per 60 over the past 7 seasons. So my assumption here is if he goes 8.5 shots on goal per 60 and a 10.2-ish, he could potentially fall to 19 goals next season. And that's a big drop off from where we just saw him, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
33 goals to 19. Now, I don't know he'll
That's a big
necessarily
jump.
that's it. Yeah, right. That's where the bust comes in because people are going to be expecting more goals than he's going to post here, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, even if he can convert at his career average of 13.5% and maintain his deployment from last season, I think you're still only looking at around 24 goals. And that's still a 9-goal difference from last year. So I think it could get ugly in terms of goal scoring for Jamie Benn.
Oh, it would vary. Even with your projection here, yikes! I don't even know if I would go that high.
Yeah,
And I don't run any numbers. That's just just watching him play over the past few years. It seems high.
and it could be, right? I mean, yeah, especially and you look at his secondary assist rate. So that's the other thing I want to talk about. That was the third highest of his career at 0.86 secondary assists per 60. That's an 87% increase from the year prior and a 32% increase over his career average of 0.64. So I would say if we see him closer to his career average, you can expect a decline of at least 4 secondary assists for next season. So all in all, like I said, 63 points and 24 goals. That's maybe me being a little bit generous, but you're right, Bruce. It could fall off the rails a little further even.
Because where they got him projected for next year, they've got him on the left side on the second line projected for next year.
Yeah, and I mean, all of this is sort of speculation based on last year's deployment and what we've seen from Daily Faceoff or Dauber, wherever they have those guys slotted into the lineup. But I mean, things can change, right? And
Definitely.
But I guess it's a word of caution, right? Be careful. Don't draft this guy. Because last year, one source had him taken at 194th on average in ESPN leagues, and he was actually undrafted in Yahoo, or at least not listed, according to the site I looked at. So, and he's going to go much higher next year.
I would not be drafting him as a point-per-game player. He would be very much a late-round flyer for me.
Well, and I saw there was actually a tweet from Mike, our buddy over at Left Wing Lock, and it was sort of like the who is this player based on right? So and it was Jamie Benn, right? I had actually guessed that one correctly, but Left Wing Lock is putting Benn on their do not draft list this fall.
Yeah, I won't. He's not on my draft list.
I mean, if I can get him late again, right? If he's sitting there in the right format, it probably makes some sense if he's, like you said, a late round flyer or last round flyer. But I'm not reaching for the guy, that's for sure.
No, definitely not. Same with this next guy.
So let's move on to this one. Linus Ullmark, the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. My level of concern here, Bruce, is I'm going to go with 4 red flags as opposed to 5 because I think he's still a great goaltender, and there still is some level of talent in Boston, but have you seen their center depth?
Bergeron's retired. Krejci's probably going to be next.
Yep.
Traded away Hall. Bertuzzi opted to sign in Toronto. And Orlov left too.
Yep, signed a 2-year deal in Carolina.
They still, and I think they had another defenseman leave too, whether by choice or by not, I can't remember. But I cannot see Ullmark repeating his season from this year. I just cannot. That goal save above expected, there is no chance he replays. There's no chance that he, even with the goals against, you look at all 3 of those numbers. You look at this goals against average at 189 and a 938 save percentage and 48.87 goals saved above expected. There is just no way he can repeat that.
Yeah, those are astronomical numbers. And so I dug into this a little bit, and over the past 25 years, only 4 goaltenders that have played a minimum of 25 games have posted a better even strike save percentage than the 944 that Ullmark sported in 2022-2023. And those goaltenders were Dominic Hasek, had a 947 in 64 games played. Tim Thomas had a 947 in 57 games played. Brian Elliott, a 945 in 38 games played, and Anton Khudobin with a 945 in 30 games played.
Elliott did that?
Apparently.
Did it say which team he was playing for when he did that?
I'd have to go back and look, Bruce, but it was on NHL.com, so.
Wow. Even for Khudobin, that's impressive.
Yeah, so I guess my point just
Wow.
being here that he's not going to duplicate those numbers even if the same roster were returning next season. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, that would that those numbers are just ridiculous.
And then the other thing I noticed too was that his PK save percentage at 900 is due for some, I guess, fairly significant regression. So as we talked about before in this podcast, the penalty kill for goaltenders, it should be the average is about 860 on the penalty kill. So expect that number to kind of creep back to 860 as opposed to 900, and that is obviously going to have some influence on his final numbers. So then again, just looking back at draft position, I was able to get him, Bruce. I looked back through some of our drafts, and I got him at 227th overall last year in our FHHL league.
Well, in our ESPN league, he went undrafted. Somebody picked him up shortly after the draft as a waiver wire pickup.
It's crazy. It's absolutely bonkers.
He wasn't even. Yeah, it's just nuts.
I couldn't believe it.
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah, everyone thought Jeremy Swayman, right? Because I think, did Jeremy Swayman have a good power or postseason? Was that the deal? Like before last year, I think, did he have a good run in the playoffs or something? And that's why people were all high on Jeremy Swayman?
Yes, so Ulmer kind of struggled through down the stretch last year, and Swayman came in and picked up the slack. So they thought that Swayman would be the one, possibly the one coming into the season where he'd be the, even though salary wise, you kind of figured it was going to be Ulmer because he has the much larger salary. But
yeah,
and then and then this happened. So he's going to be there are going to be fantasy managers that just, oh my God, are they going to pick him really high?
They are. I mean, someone who wasn't paying attention or just maybe the casual fantasy fan is going to grab Ulmark thinking that guy's going to crush it again next year.
I can't see it happening.
I don't see it happening either. I think looking on Frozen Tools, his quality start percentage was something like 85%. Like just crazy. Yeah, like he won a silly amount of games last year. It was just
60. No, they won. No, he won 60 games, did he not?
I'm just going to pull that number up right now. 40 wins. He had, but
40 wins. 40, the team won 60.
40 wins in 49 games played.
Wow. Just wow.
Yeah. Okay, so there you have it.
Yeah.
Ulmark, going to take a step back. But that's the funny thing, hey? Like 0G, it's... That is a real viable option. There's going to be one or two goaltenders every year that we're just sitting on the waiver wire, right? Or we're taken in the last round of a draft.
Well, look at me. I got the two Leafs goalies in ridiculously late rounds last year in our ESPN league. Nobody wanted Samsonov or Murray. Ended up getting both of them.
Oh boy. Okay, well that's Ulmark for this year. Let's move on to number 4 here. Vince Dunn of the Seattle Kraken. My level of concern here, Bruce, is 3 red flags. He was great for Seattle last season, and he posted.
He was really good.
He was really good. He posted a career best 64 points and 14 goals in 81 games. He posted career best in plus minus with plus 28 in hits with 115. Power play points, he had 15. Power play share was at 56, 57%. And time on ice was just under 24 minutes. So, really solid season from him. But before that, he had never eclipsed the 40-point mark in his 6-year career.
No, but he wasn't afforded the opportunity he was given in Seattle either.
And that is a very valid point. And I guess that's why, like, part of this, I'm saying it's kind of a 3-flag level of concern because I think he can still be fairly close to what he did this year, but I think he will take a little bit of a step back. And here's why. So his team's even strength shooting percentage, 12.4%. That's a bit high for me, right? Mm-hmm. Probably not sustainable for next year. Also, his... that was well above his previous career high of 9.2%. That was another number that I wanted to mention there. So And then looking at his individual shooting percentage, 9.4% was another career high. And I think he's probably closer. Like his 3-year average is 7.9%, and his career average is 6.9%. So, like not massive jumps in his individual shooting percentage, but I can see some modest regression there.
Yeah, and it's just 1 year, right? So how I would look at this is I wouldn't be taking him high this year. I'd want to see what he does this coming year before I would consider drafting him high.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd want to see if he can repeat this, right? He's got a nice big contract now, so he's going to be hopefully motivated to go out there and boost numbers from last year. But as a fantasy manager, I think I would probably go with someone more. I would try to get someone more established than done and not unless you want to be a bit of a risk taker and see what he can do.
Yeah, Seattle did great last year, and I think they're going to be a solid team again this year too. So, I mean, he's getting, like you said, now he's getting lots of opportunity, and he may just crush my entire argument here, but I think there's a couple of things to keep an eye on, and one is actually Dunn's career high. He posted a career high 0.66 secondary assists per 60 this past season. That was a 40% increase and 7 additional secondary assists from the year prior. So if you consider that his career average is 0.42 secondary assists per 60, I'm expecting at least a 6-point decline in his point total just right there. And then the other thing
it still isn't that bad.
It's not terrible. But again, these are just numbers to, I'm looking into them, and this is kind of what it is. The other thing too to keep in mind is that his shot rate's been on the decline. His shots on goal per 60 over the past 4 seasons. So he went from 7.2 shots on goal per 60 in 2019-2020 to just 4.7 last year. So he had all this opportunity and he seemed to be shooting the puck a lot less. So I don't know, is he just getting the puck to the forwards and he's just firing it less? Is it a coaching thing? Like, yeah. I'm not sure, right? But something to keep an eye on too. So my expectation for next year is that he's probably more in that 54 to 58 point range and around 12 goals, which I still think is great. And if you can get him at the right,
that's great for a defenseman.
Yeah, exactly. And if you can get him at the right price point, then it's all good.
Definitely.
But just I don't expect him to be a 65 or a 70 point defenseman next year. At least I'm not. I'm not drafting him with that.
No, I wouldn't draft him with that in mind either.
All right, beautiful. Last guy here, and Bruce, this one, it pains me, but
this one's gonna hurt.
But we got to talk about it.
Yep.
We know it's coming. So Ryan Nugent-Hopkins of the Edmonton Oilers, center left wing eligible. My level of concern is 5 big fat red flags. I wrote like an essay on this one, so there's lots of information here for anyone that cares. But he posted 104 points, right? For the first time in his 12-year career, he was over 100 points. 37 goals, also a career high. His best before this, Bruce, 69 points and 28 goals. That is a massive, massive jump from his career.
That's a huge jump.
10.8 Tevish, which, it's not super alarming, but again, it's just one more career high, right? So we're looking at things sort of outside of his normal. His shooting percentage, he converted on 18.4% of his 201 shots. That smashed his 3-year and career averages of 13.1 and 12.2% respectively. So just looking at his shooting percentage right there, you can expect some regression with a fair degree of confidence.
Yeah, I can't see him repeating. It'd sure be nice being an Oilers fan to see him repeat that. I can't see him doing it.
No, I don't either. I really hope I'm wrong here, Bruce, but time will tell.
Yeah. Well, at least we know in our leagues we don't have to worry about it because Tyler is going to take him really high anyway.
He doesn't care. We've got too many guys in our ESPN league that just don't seem to care about ADP at all. They just grab whatever Oilers they can as quickly as they can.
Yeah. That's why in that league I don't draft an Oiler unless
I haven't been able to.
I just let everyone else fight over him, and I'll go to the other teams and they can fight over all the Oilers players.
I really hope this is the year that I get to draft McDavid or Draisaitl. I just give me one. It's been like 8 years. Just give me one, damn it.
Well, that's just it. You got to get draft position 1 or 2, and if you don't get those, you're not getting in.
No, no.
The only one you might get is Jack Campbell.
Oh boy, Evander Kane.
I don't know
I'm probably going Evander Kane before I take Campbell.
So I'll get Campbell at 0G.
There you go. Actually, you know what? That may be a sneaky 0G option, Bruce, for next year.
I'm hoping so.
I do think that there's some bounce back appeal there for sure.
Definitely.
Getting back to Nugent Hopkins here, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, yeah, but you know what? The guy is a lock on the best power play in league history, and that is true. But he shot a career high 25% of the power play.
Wow.
His career average is 15.6%. So just taking that into account, that would be a 6-goal drop in total production last season. And I think that would bring him then that brings him under 100 points, right? So if he's shooting at his career average on the power play, he's under 100 points. He's, just over 30 goals. And then the last thing I want to mention is secondary assists per 60. He saw an 83% increase in secondary assists per 60, going from 0.36 in 2021-2022 to 0.66 in 2022-2023. The difference from season to season translated to another 6 points overall for the Oilers' alternate captain. So you can see, Bruce, how the points are piling up here pretty quickly as everything is just incredibly inflated.
Oh yeah, it's the Oilers, right? This team, when it once, can score at will, so the potential is there. But I don't. With also too, you got to remember, Evander Kane was out for how many months with his wrist injury?
Yeah.
During that span as well, so his additional playing time is gonna cut into that as well. I would think.
Yeah, I would say so too.
There was no Evander Kane level replacement on the team once he went out with his cut.
That's right. So I guess between the power play shooting percentage, secondary assist per 60, individual shooting percentage, RNH could see a 23-point decline next season. So I think what I had him at was around 85 points. I still think he can. I still think he can be like an 82 to 85 point player, and I think probably closer to 25 to 27 or 28 goals. Like I think that's in the realm of possibilities, but don't expect another 37 goal season from Ryan Nugent-Hopkins next season.
It'd be nice, but I just, as a fantasy manager, I just can't see him doing it.
No. And the other thing too is now, given the level of production we saw last year, he's going to go way, way earlier than his ADP of 142 last season. Tyler's
going to take him in like the 3rd round.
Guaranteed. Because he knows, he's going to be gone. He's going to be gone if he doesn't. So we got Nuge, I think, 131st in our, was it the Experts League we're in? I think it was the 11th round we were able to snag him. So
yeah,
I think that was great value for us last year in that league.
Oh, absolutely.
How many 104-point players do you take in the 11th round?
Not many.
Not many. So that was pretty cool. Okay. And then there's a couple quick honorable or dishonorable mentions. So just a couple more guys to consider here for next season that could be a bust. Jared McCann, Jeff Skinner, Brock Nelson, Alex Killorn, and Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah, McCann's. I see McCann on there, but he's 2 years in a row. Is it 2 years in a row now he's put up 30?
Well, he had 40 this last year, didn't he?
Is it 40?
Let's pull up his numbers here too.
I'm terrible. I bring all this stuff up when I don't check any stats.
No, yeah, he did. He had.
I'm having a Tyler week. I just read the notes as we signed on, so I didn't do any research.
Uh-oh. Tyler just said, I thought we were on at 9:30. I guess he missed the entire episode.
Yeah. Oops.
That's okay. It was a short one tonight. Yeah, Jared McCann, 70 points, 40 goals last year in 79 games.
And then what did he do the previous year?
27 in 74.
But he jumped around a bit the previous year, right?
Well, I mean, he had 43 games played in 2020, 2021. He had 14 goals for Pittsburgh. Again, he played 14 minutes a night in Pittsburgh that season. and he still managed to post 14 goals. So that's pretty good. But his shot production actually improved these past couple seasons too. So he was at in 2020 9.2 shots on goal per 60. In 2021, 2022, he was at 10 shots on goal per 60. Offensive zone starts increased a little bit, and then he had some luck here too. So he was at 12.6, his 5-on-5 shooting percentage with him on the ice, and then of course his individual shooting percentage at this past season was 19%, and that's a career high for him. So,
yeah, out of all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, he'd probably be the one that I would consider that would probably be the closest to repeat. Skinner, I don't have any confidence in him repeating just because I think he could get pushed down the chart here as the young players start picking up in Buffalo. Brock Nelson plays for the Islanders. You pretty much don't need to hear any more about that. Kaloran went to Anaheim. That's pretty much all you need to know about that. And D'Angelo will be the interesting one now that he's back in Carolina. Where is he going to play? I'm assuming to bring him back, they're bringing him back to run the power play.
But not over Brent Burns, though, right?
Oh, what else does D'Angelo do? He doesn't defend.
I don't know. And that's a good question, Bruce. I mean, I like the contract at $1.6 million for 1 year. Maybe he's some insurance in case Burns can't run the power play, trips over his beard. I'm not really sure. Like,
I don't know either.
And that's why I kind of have him on this list, because he's not going to be the Tony D'Angelo that ran the power play in New York, or was fantastic in Carolina. Like, he's not going to be the same player. I don't think he's going to have power play 2 and probably third pairing minutes. That's my guess right now.
It's all going to depend on how they deploy him. Like, I think for them to bring him back at that, I think they're going to put him on. I think they're going to flip Burns and D'Angelo. I think they're going to put D'Angelo on power play 1, and they're going to move Burns down to power play 2.
That would be an interesting call. I mean, if that were the case, all of a sudden he becomes a pretty sneaky sleeper pick for next year.
Oh, look what he did on that last 1-year contract he did in Carolina. He lit that power play was great. And I think they're hoping they can rebuild that again.
Okay. Well, time will tell. If he does go off this year, you heard it here first from Bruce. So, Alex Kaloran, I kind of wondered. I don't have a high degree of confidence he'll do anything this year, but he's gonna get pretty prime deployment. Like, it's not a great team, but Alex Kaloran should get power play 1. No,
he's definitely going to get opportunity, but it's Anaheim. Sorry, until Anaheim actually does something, I am not drafting anybody from Anaheim except for maybe Zegras.
Well, they were awful last year, no question, and we'll talk about that next week in our part 1 of our fantasy preview for the Pacific Division. But I don't know. I'm curious. I'm really curious to see what Alex Kaloran does. For me, he's going to be waiver fodder, right? He's a guy you'll be able to, unless you're in a really deep drafted league. No, but I mean, could still have some value. And then Jeff Skinner, going back to him for a second, I wonder if he continues producing just through osmosis, just by playing with Tage Thompson.
Yeah, if they're going to pin him to Tage Thompson's side, then yes, he's going to put up points. Because Tage just seems to be getting better and better and better, and he has to get points just based of kind of like the Pat Maroon effect at Edmonton when he was playing with McDavid. Just go to the right spot and wait for a pass. That's really all Skinner has to do.
But you know what? Like, we got to give Skinner some credit too, because the guy is a competent goal scorer. Like, he had 30.
Oh, absolutely.
35 last year. He had 33 the year before. He had 40 in 2018, 2019, 24 the season before that, 37 the year before that, 28 the year before that. He's done quite well. And if you put him with the right personnel and give him the right deployment, like we saw it, I think in 1 season or 2 seasons in Carolina, where he kind of got buried in the depth chart, right? And they didn't give him any power play time, and he was kind of useless. But I mean, 82 points last year. It's funny. Buffalo's going to be a fun team to watch next year. They got a lot of good young players, and
definitely
they're going to push for the playoffs again.
They're going to be closer next year than they were this year if they don't make it, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it, Bruce. We're a little bit over the 30-minute benchmark I had set for us. That's okay. 40 minutes will have to do.
Too much.
No, this is great. This is great. So, but this was totally just sort of an impromptu episode. I wanted to get something out for the listeners this week just because I screwed up the schedule. So here we are. But like I said, make sure you guys tune in next week for parts 1 and 2 of the Pacific Division preview with Matt Larkin and Caleb Kearney from the Hockey News. It's going to be lots of fun. Bruce and I are mostly just going to listen and ask questions.
That's about it.
There you go. And if you want to find us on social media, we're on Twitter at FHHacks, on Instagram at Fantasy Hockey Hacks. We're on Threads, I think, at Fantasy Hockey Hacks. Go find us there. And, of course, like I said, check the website, fantasyhockeyhacks.com, for more information in the blog. Just a few more details on these 5 players that we discussed. Bruce, thanks for hanging with me. I will see you next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you then.
Alrighty. Take care.